Hey, so this video is a little bit different. I'm actually in the real world rather than a blue void like the rest of my videos. And that's because I wanted to show you guys how I made something, which is the intro sequence to my Ronin SC follow focus review. I think it turned out really well, and I just wanted to do a breakdown of how I did it. If you've seen it, great. If you haven't, this is what I'm talking about. So that was the intro sequence. I think the best way to do it is if I just set up the first shot, the kind of floating, rotating gimbal one, and then I'll show you guys a breakdown of that setup once it's done, rather than showing you kind of step by step while I do it. So let's do that. Okay, so this is it all set up. It looks like a bit of a mess, but trust me, it's not, and everything is there for a reason. So, you know what, let me take you off here. Right, now I feel like a proper vlogger. So this is the whole setup from the back. I have the FS7 there, shooting with a 24-70 f2.8 from Tamron, and then just a mess of stands. So let me go a little bit closer in and I can show you what each thing does. So starting with this Ronin, let me show you how I have that set up. So it's just on a light stand. This is one of those Manfrotto light stands that just kind of folds flat. Then there's a knuckle here from a C stand. You'd probably be better off using a short C stand, but my C stand is super tall, so I can't really use that. So I just put the arm and the knuckle on the normal light stand. Here I have a little clamp, and this is just here so that when I undo this, so I can rotate it, it doesn't just all slide down. And then up here I have a Manfrotto super clamp on a small rig, magic arm, and on another light stand. And this is just to give it a little bit more support so that when I undo it there, it has something to rest on. Otherwise it would just kind of slope down. So this just gives it a bit of extra support. And then the Ronin is just attached to the arm from the C stand. This one comes with threads at the end. Not all of them do, this one does, so I just threaded it straight onto there. So this is my little wireless video setup. It's a Mars 400S from Holyland and a small HD focus SDI. And this is just so I can move around and see the preview from my camera wherever I am. So when I'm adjusting a light, I can see it straight away instead of having to go back and forth to the camera. And I have it set up here so that when I rotate this, I can just see what's going on. Okay, onto the lighting. So firstly, I've blacked out the room as much as I could. We have quite thick curtains here, and then I just shut all that. This is just so I have as much control of the light as possible. You should always try to get the room as dark as possible before you start lighting so that you don't get any spill from things that you can't control. I have a Aperture 300D Mark II with a Light Dome Mini 2 with a grid on there just to kind of make sure the light doesn't spill onto the background. The 300D is a bit overkill here. I think I have it set onto like 12%, so you don't need the 300D. You could do with a much smaller light. And then I have a couple of these small aperture lights, and then an Aperture MC on the back. I think that's what it's called. That is just an RGB little light from Aperture, and that just gives my background a bit of a light and a bit of a vignette, just to make it a bit more interesting, because otherwise it's just a white background. So I hope that all makes sense, but let me just single out each light so you can see exactly what it does. So this is it with just the backlight. You can see it's just a silhouette of the Ronin, and all it does is add a bit of color to that white background and gives us a little vignette. So with just this backlight on, you can see how it adds a bit of an emphasis onto some of the angles. You can kind of make out more of a shape, and it really separates it from the background. Now the other little aperture light, that does a similar job, but because it's a bit closer, it wraps around a little bit more, so it has a bit more of an impact. I also put a bit of gaff tape around those little lights just to get rid of some of the spill that would go onto that back wall. Obviously the 300D here does most of the work. It's just a big soft light that wraps around the whole gimbal. There's a bit of a spill there, which if we just shifted the whole thing back, we could get rid of it, but it's not that much of a problem here, so nothing to worry about. But yeah, that's just, the 300D is just that main key light for the gimbal for this shot. So now all that's left to do is to rotate. So I'm just gonna undo this here. And there we go. For some reason, I like to make things look like they're floating recently. And to do that, we're gonna need to take this whole thing off and shoot a clean plate so that then we can get rid of this whole thing in post. Now it's important to make sure that all your lights are exactly in the same spot. Don't move the camera, don't move the lights, just move the thing that you're filming. With all that shot and a little bit of masking, you should end up with something like this. The next few shots are essentially the same, they're just close-ups of the gimbal, so I won't go into detail on how I did those, but the shot after that is a super close-up macro of this little thing, but I don't have a macro lens, so let me show you how I did it. Right, so with all the same kit, the same lens and everything, zoomed all the way in on a close focus, this is as close as I can get. Now it's a nice shot, but I want to be closer. This is weird. I don't know if you've noticed, but this is the back of the lens. And for some reason, if you do this, you end up with a macro lens. Now I won't go into detail about why and how it works, mainly because I don't know, but it does. Now, I think it's important to say that I do not in any way recommend you doing this because it's dumb and it's really difficult and it's really finicky. So if you have access to a macro lens or if you can get one of those adapters, just do that instead. But in any case, I will show you how I did it. Just don't do it, okay? Cool. So I'm pretty sure you can actually get adapters that let you mount a lens in the opposite direction, but don't quote me on it, I'm not sure. So this is what I came up with. I have a light stand, then a magic arm, and a Manfrotto super clamp, which is holding my Canon 70-200 f4 lens. I've aligned that with a Metabones adapter. It's not actually attached to the camera in any way. It literally just sits on this. Let me show you another one of those cool little breakdowns where I show you what each light does. So again, as you might expect, the back light does the back, and it just adds a bit of color to the back and a little bit of a gradient again. The little M9 here again gives us a little bit of an edge light just to separate it from the background. This little light, which is actually attached to the rods on the camera, it kind of acts as a fill and it just wraps around the focus wheel in a really nice way. And then the 300D gives us the most light and just really defines the shape of the focus wheel. Now it's also important to mention that with this backwards mount, you also don't get much focus control. So that's another thing that's really annoying about it. But with all that said and all the lights on, all that's left to do is just rotate this little thing. So again, the next few shots are essentially the same. They're just macro shots of different parts of the Ronin. I just left the camera as it is and moved the bits into shot. There's a shot in there where the focus motor spins at the same time as the whole rig. For that one, I just had the Ronin mounted horizontally on the C-stand arm, and then it was in 360 roll, and then I moved the focus at the same time. So it wasn't something that much different. The next interesting shot is the one at the end. Okay, so it's actually kind of simple. I have a bit of a pulley system with fishing wire that goes from there to the focus wheel and then back again. And the idea is that I can just loosen these, hold them both, and then pull them to rotate the focus wheel. And then I can just get rid of these in the edit. Lighting wise, we've got, again, key, background, all the same, then backlight, and a little detail side light. I'll show you what they all do right now. Background color vignette. This is the backlight. Again, it just kind of emphasizes that edge and separates it from the background. This side light mainly just lights up the Ronin logo and just adds a little bit of detail here. As before, soft key light, trying to keep it as close to the actual gimbal as I can, just to make it a bit softer. So what I'll do is I'll start with it the right way around and then turn it to be upside down and then reverse that in post, because it's much easier to start with it perfectly and then rotate it rather than rotate it into the perfect position. So now all that's left to do is to get rid of this and get a clean plate. All the motion in the final clip was done in post because I can't afford a crazy motion control rig that could do that in camera. Then in post, I just extended the background a little bit so that when it rotates, you don't see the edges of the clip. And I matched the rotation to the rotation of this wheel. And that gets you that cool effect where everything rotates but the wheel, and it all just kind of rotates into place. So what did you guys think? Would you like more detail, less detail? Let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button if you found this video useful, and subscribe for more content just like this. But that's everything for this one. I'll see you in the next video.